Hello, welcome to Board Game Bonkers. This is a Three Links review. We're going to take a look at 3 different board games. The first one will be Dragon's Breath, which I highly recommend with the expansion. Next is the Cliffrock Villa. And then finally, the Quest for the Moonstones. Now, bear in mind that this is going to be our last video using this particular type of format. What we've done was trying to transition into a new one. So you'll see this being slightly different from our previous 2 Three Links reviews, and this will be different from our Three Links reviews going forward, so keep that in mind. Now, the first game we're going to discuss is Dragon's Breath, which I've already stated I recommend that with the expansion. So how does Dragon's Breath work? Well, what you'll be doing, there'll be ice rings. You'll be stacking those ice rings in the middle of the board. The box is actually your board. And in those rings, which are known as ice rings, as you'll be putting the gemstones inside. And on a player's turn, they'll be taking that ice ring off. Thematically, the dragon is melting the ice away, and any gemstones that fall into the box and that through the holes that are presented there on the lid will be gone, and only the gems that are showing and have fell to the ground will be available for players to take. So players on their turn will take a gemstone, and what you're trying to do is collect gemstones of the same colour that will score you more points. Now with the expansion, that provides a little bit more, which I recommend using. So you get more gemstones and more ice rings if you want to use them. Now, the difference is when the player takes that ice ring off, gems fall down. The player whose turn it is, who's taken that ice ring off, will be able to decide which gemstone to take away. So there is an egg you place on top of the stack, and if that egg stays on top when you take the ring off, you can take 2 gemstones away that fell down into the holes that's in the box lid. When you've done that, you'll then proceed in turn order for the next player to pick the gemstone that they want. You also have contract cards. You have 3 cards laid out, and you'll be able to take gemstones to try and match what's on the card. Now, if you've got to place the gemstone on a card, you can move them around in the cards. That's fine. You'll have 3 laid out in front of you. When you've completed and fulfilled that card, you take the gemstones off, move the card to the side, and draw a new one. This gives it a little bit more strategy and meaning to it. So let's now discuss what we like about our positives, our negatives, and then give my final thoughts. So a few good positives. With the expansion, it actually provides a lot more strategy with those contract cards. And those contract cards give you a little bit of strategic decisions. So I can visually see what colours I need. I need to work out on my turn when I take the ring off, which gemstones to take away and which gemstones I can see my opponents need, and also working yourself, what gemstones do I need to fulfill those cards, keeping in mind I can move the gemstones around. So I really like that strategic element the expansion provides. The second point that I really like about this game is it has a tactile feel to it, because you're physically taking the rings off, which the dragon's melting away. The gemstones then fall. It's just visually pleasing. It's great for young children to be able to do that, and it helps with their motoring skills. So the third thing that we really like is how quick this game plays. It plays in about 15 minutes, possibly 20 minutes, a little bit more with the expansion. But I think that's a good time frame for this game. It's certainly aimed towards younger children, ages, what it says 4+. I reckon it's ideal, certainly 6+. It's perfect for that age range. Sure, 4 and 5-year-olds can play this because it's tactile, it's a little bit of fun, and it will help with their motoring skills. So the final thing that I really enjoy is the fun thematic feel that this game gives. And although it's simplistic, it really does feel thematic. The dragon's melting away the ice ring, you're taking that off, you're getting the gems. Sure, if you see a pile of gems, that's highly unlikely, but I just like the feel and the thematic sense this gives. It's friendly. You've got these chunky dragons. Looks really cool. The kids like fiddling about with them, especially when you get kids that can't sit still. Just give them one of those dragons. It looks good as well on the table. And I like that they've utilised the box, and when the gems fall down, there are little holes, and if they fall into the holes, the gems are lost. So I really do enjoy that. So let's now move on to some of my negatives. And really, I haven't got much to say. One particular thing is without the expansion, it feels a little bit drag, a little bit boring. You're simply just taking a ring off and collecting gemstones of the same colour. But I feel with the expansion, it certainly adds to that strategy. And even with younger children, I played this with my son who was 6 at the time. He managed to grasp it really well with those contract cards. It's really simple. It's just a colour of gem you're trying to match with ones you're picking out from the box. And the second negative that I will say is you've got these dragons, they look really cool and they give that thematic sense of it, but really they're not doing anything. They're just there for showcase. And they could have really used just basic standees instead. Why they've got those dragons? Sure, it gives who's the first player, but it's not that difficult to know if you're going in clockwise order. But it just seems a little bit a waste of money, and I would have liked to have seen perhaps the expansion just included in the base game, and that goes into my third negative. Why isn't the expansion as part of the base game? It seems like it should have been added in, and then you could play two different variants with those contract cards or without the contract cards and the egg that you put on top. Because if the egg falls, then you're going to take away one gem from other players that have fallen down into the box. And if it doesn't fall, you take away two. You could have just used that as a variant included in with the main base game. And I feel that is a little bit too expensive by having to pick up the expansion with the base game as well. But I do highly recommend you use the expansion with the base game. So on to my final thoughts. Overall, I think this is a really fun game for families and children. I actually like this more than the children do. I really enjoyed playing this. I really enjoyed it with the expansion. And I do feel that, like I said, they should have included the expansion with the base game, but it just elevates the strategy that you're using in this game, and it's light enough for young children to understand, and it provides a better focus point in terms of what you're actually working at and what you need. Although the base game does provide that by cluttering your same types of gems together, but I feel that the contract cards do offer more strategy. But overall, this is a really good game. It's fun, it's engaging, it has a tactile sense to it as well. So children will like that tactile feel of taking the rings off and watching the gems fall as well. And you can see what gems are going to fall and which ones might be coming next. And it's really fun. The children enjoy that. And I think all families will really engage with this, adults as well. I really like this. My children didn't like it as much as me, but you might be the other way around. Your children might like it more than you do. I think this is a really good game. And I'm going to come in at a 7 out of 10. I think it's good for what it is. I think for such a simplistic game, it does a great job. I definitely recommend checking this one out. Next, we'll be checking out the Cliffrock Villa version. And this is a game in which you'll be using deduction skills and deducing who the culprits are, who stole what, at what time, and how they got away. So what you'll be doing is picking a key colour. So there's different keys of different colours. You'll be placing it at the centre of the table. Then you'll be collecting all your clue cards, giving them a shuffle, and then placing them face down on the table. On the back of the clue cards will have different coloured squares to represent the game that you'll be playing. So for example, you'll be searching for the clue cards that have the colour of purple on them if you choose the purple key. And also on the clue cards, you will find there's an icon that indicates a clue type that is. For example, a fingerprint, a time, or an item you're trying to search for. But you don't know exactly how much information is presented on that card until you collect it. And this is a real-time game, although you're not bound by the time as such. And what you'll be doing is you will be searching for those clue cards, picking the ones that are relevant for your case, taking that clue card, flipping it over, and having a look at the information that's presented to try and deduce who did what, why, where, how they got away, and what item they stole. So what do we like and what don't we like about this game? Well, the first thing we like about the game is that it's quite a thinky, challenging game. You've got quite a lot. You've got 3 different cases. Essentially, they're all the same. 3 different culprits, 3 different times, 3 different items, 3 different methods of escaping. And you're going to figure out with all the minimal amount of clue cards in order to deduct and work out who did what. Now, you're not bound by the time as such, and that goes into my second point, which is a big positive. Real-time games tend to be quite frustrating, but this doesn't seem frustrating because you're not bound by the time. You actually trying to get the minimal amount of clue cards, and that's going to determine the amount of points you will receive, not by how quickly you complete the case. So what you're trying to do is get the clue cards before the other players, because if you're looking for a certain type of clue cards, such as a fingerprint, you're trying to get those fingerprint cards before the other players. There are only so many of each type of card, so you're searching through this pile of cards, which are all in a circle on the table, trying to figure out which ones do I need to try and give me the information to deduce and work out the information that I need. I'm trying to do that with the minimal amount of cards as possible. So the third thing we like are the clue cards themselves. There's a variety of them. You have different choices in what information you need. So you could, for example, concentrate on the time. You can concentrate on, right, I now need to figure out what items I need to look for item cards. I need to figure out the person. So I need to find cards that relate to the people. So I need to find those types of cards. I don't want to give away too much to avoid that element of surprise, but it is interesting. There's a lot of choice there. However, there are a few negatives with the game. And the first thing is the free cases. Well, that's fine for adults, and the game is fairly straightforward, and it takes about 15 to 20 minutes, which is a big positive. There is a caveat to this, and that is with the three different types, because you have a board, it's not a board as such, it's a shield, and you'll be marking off who's done what in the three different ones. You have to work out three different cases. That can feel a bit overwhelming for younger players. So when we played this with Chloe, who was 10 at the time, she felt a little bit overwhelmed and was confused trying to deduce and work out what time was this done? Where does this relate to? Is it this person? Is it that person? Which one do I mark off? And it can feel overwhelming. We found out that she actually started collecting more and more cards, and that became more overwhelming because she felt she needed more information. So we feel that perhaps it could have had a couple of those, not boards, but shields, that were more suitable for younger players. Perhaps there was not three, but two cases to try and crack rather than the three that you have to figure out. That would have made it a little bit easier for younger players. The second thing we're not so keen on is that each case essentially is the same. So you're doing the same thing and the cases don't differentiate aside from the combinations will be different. So what you're essentially trying to do is get those combinations. It gives you a code, which then you'll take the key and then place it into a board and turn that board round to see whether you've been successful or not. And it's the same every time. So would it be nice to see some variation and understand to keep costs down? They have that shield in which you're marking things off, and obviously introducing more of them does increase the cost. That's why they've obviously brought out different versions, but I do feel that over time this will fade because of how very samey it feels from game to game. First thing we're not so keen on is how flimsy that shield is. So you have the shield in front of you, and it'll give you the information to mark off in your wipeable pen, and you'll be able to put across into the little boxes to mark off which ones are not relevant from the clue cards that you've received. And you're trying to deduce that information to then present you with the right time, the right person, and the right getaway method that they've used, of which they are free to try and decipher. It does feel, it's a little bit flimsy. It stands up fine, but I would have much preferred a wipeable board. I think that would have been better. I'm not sure on, I can understand why you're hiding it because you don't want other players to see what you're doing. Although we found that no players were ever trying to find out what the others were doing because you're so engrossed in concentrating on what you're doing. So you're not really paying attention to the other players. So I felt that the quality of that could have been a little bit better. Having said that, despite Chloe struggling and needing a bit of support and help, and I recommend that for younger players, the game does state it's for ages 8 plus. I personally would not play this with anyone 8 or 9 without any support or guidance. She still wants to play this game. She's still asked to play it, which shows that it's engrossing and she enjoys the challenge, and it is challenging for younger children. It's not so much challenging for adults, where we managed to complete this in around 10 to 15 minutes. It may take a little bit longer, depending on how quickly you can find those relevant cards. Overall, this is a good, challenging game and one I'd recommend for older kids to get involved in. And I think it's one it's great for the whole family. I think you all have a lot of fun, and we're giving this a 7 out of 10. It's a game we recommend, despite having some minor flaws to it. Overall, it's a fun, enjoyable game. Do check it out. Next up, we'll be taking a look at Kids Chronicles. This is the quest for the Moonstones, and it's based on the same concept of Chronicles of Crime, which you can see behind me. And what we'll be doing in this game is we'll be going on an adventure where you'll be using the app and scanning in the QR code that's on the cards. There's a double-sided board, and that will tell you which side of the board to use. It'll tell you which cards to start with, where to place them on the locations on the board, and you'll be going around scanning those cards into the app, which will give you more information, and it'll then tell you which additional cards you need to take out and place onto the board, and it'll also give you information on any item cards. And there are also item cards in which you can join together, so some items work with other items, and some items work with certain individuals, certain people you come across, or animals. And there's another animal card that actually you keep throughout the whole entire quest, which will give you some hints and tips and help you along your journey. When you've discovered all 5 gemstones, you've then completed the quest. So what do we like and what don't we like about the game? So the first thing we like is the artwork. It looks fantastic. The graphic design, the art throughout the whole game, the board looks lovely. It's well presented, it's spacious, it's not cluttered, it's very clear. The artwork in the card is very clear. The item cards look fantastic. We also really enjoy this adventure that the game gives. So essentially there are 5 different chronicles you're going through, 5 gemstones to discover. And it takes you through this journey, and the story is reasonably well written. Well, it's not fully engrossing. It's engrossing enough to keep you interested. And we like how it doesn't overcomplicate it. Now, Chloe, who was 10 at the time, played this, found it fairly straightforward, managed to complete and get through all the quests, around 75% of it without any support or guidance by using the app. So that gives you a bit of an indication in terms of the age range this might be suitable for. But of course, each child is different. So we like how the board is double-sided as well during that story when it's taking you through, so you have a different feel during that journey. So the third thing we like is how well integrated the app is. The app does a fantastic job in integrating the story and actually giving you guidance and telling you which cards to bring out next and which item cards or different animals to bring out. Now, that does bring us on to some negatives. And while these are more nitpicks rather than negatives, it's still worth noting. The first thing is the app. The app is fantastic, it's great, it works really well. But we're not fans of using phones or apps during a board game. We'd rather get away from technology. So there's a caveat there. But I would say it's more of a positive because the app does a fantastic job in integrating the game. So we can live by that and we're okay with it, but you might be different. You might have a very different viewpoint on that. However, the app is around 50% of the game. The other 50% is actually looking around the board and figuring out who did what, where do I need to go next, which card do I need to scan. The second thing that we feel is not so much a negative, it's more of a nitpick, is the story. Well, it does a good job. It's quite basic and it does engross you enough. And we found that Chloe was really engrossed in that story and really enjoyed it. However, it's not an amazing story. It isn't going to take your breath away. It isn't going to be a story you'll remember in 6 months' time after playing the game. So we feel that the app could have integrated the story a lot more. Perhaps it could have shown some short films or some type of animation to bring it more to life. The third thing we felt was a little bit of a nitpick, not so much in negative as how short it is. So Clay managed to play this all in an hour and a half, and that was going through all 5 quests, and some may take a little bit longer than others, but we felt that for what you're paying, we would have liked a slightly longer quest. However, we understand there has to be a balance striking between how long a child will play a game for, how engrossed they will feel in that game, and how bored they may get if it goes on for too long. So despite saying that this is a fantastic game, it looks amazing, I would highly recommend this. We're giving this a 7.5. And although we're not fans of using apps or rather use cards, we understand that brings a cost up in a board game. I would still highly recommend this. It's one of our top picks to play. Thanks so much for watching. That's everything for now. And if you really enjoyed this video, please consider sharing it, liking it, and also subscribe to the channel so more videos like this can be shown on your stream. And thanks so much for watching. Until next time, take care.